Reanimator, and then won the Legacy Tournament with Sneak and Choke. So second first.
Almost pulled off the double victory.
Yeah,
was
Jerry
one
Thompson
match away from it.
Jerry Thompson's record was in danger. But we have Craddock here on the right versus Chase Usey on the left. Junk Reanimator versus Jund. Pretty standard matchup nowadays.
Yeah, Jund, I think right after the Pro Tour, Jund, if you remember, was the top deck in the format, and the development of Junk Reanimator really was a response to Jund being so good in the metagame. It was trying to outgrind the grindy deck.
But now, as you're going to see a lot of troll here from Will, it's kind of changed a little bit now, where at least I was under the impression that Junk Reanimator was heavily favored in this matchup, but then people started to change their Jund decks around a little bit. You see main deck ground seals nowadays, which Chase does have two in his main deck. You're going to see an Abrupt Decay take care of this lot with Troll, but they have developed a game plan in such a way that they are comfortable in the Junk Reanimator matchup, and now everyone thinks that it's a bad matchup for Junk Reanimator, where before everyone thought it was a terrible matchup for Jund.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly has changed around. We're seeing cards like Lotless Troll out of Reanimator. Interestingly enough, Will there decided to play Lotless Troll on turn 2, not to protect it from Abrupt Decay. If you're in the current iteration of Jund decks, actually only play one Liliana of the Veil. So Lotless Troll is somewhat, once you get that mana up, is very hard to kill for the Jund deck.
Yeah, most of the Jund decks that you do see are typically based off of the Owen Turtenwald reduked school of thought that we saw at SCG Somerset, as here comes Nighthawk, going to put Chase up to 20, Craddock down to 18, where you do only see about one Liliana in the main deck. Chase's version has two, and two Garrett Primal Hunters as far as the Planeswalkers go. And while Vampire Nighthawk might not be the industry standard, as you see one here, it might be pretty well positioned right now because aggressive decks are starting to pick up a little bit. We saw Naya Blitz make the top 4, 2 copies of that 3rd and 4th place last weekend in Nashville.
Yeah, it certainly feels like Chase is playing, somewhat playing a sideboard card in the main, figuring it's not so bad against the field that he can afford to do so. In this matchup, the Nighthawk's goal is probably just to, trade with something.
Yeah.
The 2 damage it does isn't going to make or break the game.
Yeah. So Chase is going to follow up with Olivia Voldaren. I think we're all familiar with that card by now. You don't kill it, you just lose. That's how it works.
Right, and I think it's one of the best cards he can have, at least game 1 in this matchup. Will Craddock does not, outside of rest of Angel of Serenity, doesn't actually have a removal spell for Olivia Voldaren in the main deck. So, if he doesn't find a way to remove the Olivia, it will end up stealing his entire team.
So Will's going to push himself up to 23 there via Thragtusk, which of course is something that we're very used to at this point in time in our standard format. But you take a look at Will's deck list, and one of the things that people are doing nowadays is they're kind of lining up their Junk Reanimator deck list with the Brian Bronduan, Chris Van Meter school of thought. We saw Van Meter win Somerset, defeating Owen Turtenwald in the finals. In Van Meter and Brian Bronduan's list, you see cards like Fiend Hunter, you see cards like Sin Collector, numerous acidic slimes. In Will's deck list, this is his main deck. You don't find any of that.
No, so he doesn't have the acidic slime package. He does have three in the sideboard, though typically we're seeing 3 in the main, 1 in the board. He has that only as a board strategy. In the main, he's hedging more toward larger creatures. He has an Obsidat in the main. He has a 3rd Angel of Serenity. A 3rd Restoration Angel, 3rd Deathrite Shaman in the main. He's just kind of making those harder hitting plays are just in his main deck.
Now Chase is going to follow up here after his attack with his flyer. So he's going to play a Hunt Master of the Fells. He's going to gain 2 life, put a Wolf token into play. Looks like he's going to ship it back. And again, Craddock is definitely in some trouble right now because he just does have that lone Thragtusk, but he is staring down a lot of relevant threats here in the form of Olivia, Vampire Nighthawk, and a Hunt Master of the Fells that is looking to potentially flip. Probably the weakest creature he does have on the board, but when your weakest creature is Hunt Master of the Fells, you're probably doing pretty good. Yeah,
and especially by Will's demeanor, the fact that he's attacking kind of makes me think he has an Angel or some sort of follow-up play. He doesn't seem to, he doesn't seem to be in that crisis mode yet of, oh, how am I going to deal with all these things?
Sure. And so now he's going to play an Unbarrowites. He's targeting his Lotless Troll. And he does have Regeneration available. That means to me, Matthias, that there's probably something being discarded here, as we are experiencing some small technical difficulties that we are going to fix for you guys. Little blurry screen action here this morning.
Right, with 6 lands, it's hard. It's interesting because I don't think there's many things that he can't just cast out of his hand right now. But the Troll, at the very least, I think it's possible he's just making that play so to not let the Hunt Master play.
Sure.
Because you look at that, you're like saying, okay, what's Lotless Troll really going to do here? I guess it trades with a Wolf token. It doesn't. On first glance, it doesn't look like a very powerful play.
Yeah. So what is he up to is the question. Maybe Will's just thinking to himself, I need a discard outlet in case I do draw a Creator of Behemoth, or if I do draw an Angel of Serenity, so I can flash back on Barrel Rights and get it back. But now Huntmaster's going to flip into Ravager. We're going to see 2 damage go to Thragtusk. And it looks like we're going to see potentially an Olivia shot.
Yeah, and that's a heads-up play, putting it on Thragtusk. Normally you'd think you'd want to put it on Lotless Troll to force it to tap, but by putting it on Thragtusk, Will can't really attack with it because it'll allow the Wolf token to trade with the front half of Thragtusk.
So now Will, I think it looks like we're in Will's upkeep right now. I think Chase is deciding, do I want to shoot that right now? You know, what line of play do I want to make here to ensure that I can win this game that I'm pretty far ahead in, all things considered.
Right. When you say shoot it, what card are we looking at in his hand?
Well, I mean, he's just got the Olivia on board that he can finish the Thragtusk off with.
With the Olivia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just, you know, considering the ramifications of his decisions.
Yeah, and I think at this point, in Chase's situation, it's probably, I think he can afford to do that on end step, just because he's so far ahead in life totals. The reason you do it main phase is to, you know, prevent an attack from Thragtusk. But what it looks like for me here is that if I'm Chase, I don't really worry about Will's attack right now. I worry about what's going to happen with my own attack next turn.
Sure. So Craddock is going to tap 4 mana, and there's a Restoration Angel. It's going to target that Thragtusk.
Yeah, and that is going to get shot.
Yep. So Olivia is going to move on.
Looks like he shot it all 3 times, which I don't think that can't happen. The other 2 shouldn't work.
Yeah, that's a little bit surprising. I think we'll get a hold of our judge here. Yeah, because with 2 damage on it for the Huntmaster, he should be able to go. He just goes shoot, it dies, right, and then the other ones won't resolve.
The other 2 won't resolve. It's perfectly legal to shoot it 3 times, but you'd only get 1 counter from doing it because the counter is part of the resolution.
So unless he fired some bullets elsewhere, unlike the Restoration Angel.
Yeah, we said just shoot everything, make everything a vampire.
Yeah,
which certainly is a reasonable play. Actually,
absolutely. You want to grow that Olivia. I mean, it looks like right now it's a 6/6. We'll get confirmation to make sure that everything was done correctly.
It's likely what you'd want to do is shoot Lotless Troll a couple. You'd either want to, if you want to swing into the flyer, you'd ping the Angel so that you can steal it. Otherwise, you'd shoot Lotless Troll to potentially tap out Will.
Yeah. So now Stomping Grounds is going to come play untapped, and I do know that Chase does have a Bonfire of the Damned in his hand right now.
Right, so that 7th land makes it X = 3. That'll take care of the Beast token and the Troll.
Okay, well, it looks like he's just going to... Okay, so he's going to shoot Restoration Angel and take it. Come to my side, Restoration Angel.
Sure. So now Will definitely is going to have to find a removal spell for Olivia this turn.
Yeah. And I like the attack here with the Wolf token as well. He's sending in his ground troops as well. If he attacks with just the Ravager of the Fells, the Beast token and the Lotless Troll can double block. But now this attack with the Wolf token is basically free because if he puts the Beast in front of here, yes, he's going to take care of the Beast. But now this Ravager of the Fells is going to run over.
So, yeah.
You see Will kind of deciding his blocks here, doing the math, figuring out, what can I do to stay alive? How much trouble am I in right now? Because it looks like he's in a healthy amount of trouble here. I'm not even sure, again, that Angel of Serenity can get him out of the situation because, I mean, let's play best case scenario. Will does draw a land for the Angel of Serenity. That may be looming in his hand. Takes care of the Olivia, maybe the Ravager, and maybe the Vampire Nighthawk.
Yeah, I think it would have to be the Nighthawk because otherwise, you don't want to trade it with the Angel.
Gets his Restoration Angel back from the Olivia clause, goes back to his side, but we know that Chase has that Bonfire of the Damned looming in his hand.
Right, so the question is how many life points is Will going to be at after this swing? He has to make sure that he's playing around the right cards on these blocks here.
It doesn't look like Lotless Troll is looking... It doesn't look like he's looking to block.
Well, yeah, he's taking 9 off the flyers, and in addition to that, he's taking trample damage from the Huntmaster, from the Ravager of the Fells. Right. So, yeah, presumably he's still not at enough life.
So now he's going to put this here. We'll see if we'll see a discard versus regeneration, because, of course, Ravager does have trample, in addition to everything else that it does.
I remember when that card was first printed at the first printed was for the Pro Tour Dark Ascension, the one that Brian Kibler won in Hawaii. A lot of times, in play testing at least, and even in the tournament, a lot of people would forget that the card has trample.
All right, so our Olivia is good to go. We just got confirmation from our judge there that everything is okay. And so now, Lotless Troll discards a Crater of Behemoth. You see regeneration. Beast token's going to die. Craddock does have... No, Beast token lives. Excuse me, Wolf token dies. So now, is this going to be a lethal Crater of Behemoth? Because it feels like it is. But there's a Restoration Angel in play.
Right, so Will's down to 2. So rather than trying to survive next turn, it looks more like he's going to try to win this turn. So he has 3 and a 3 from his 2 creatures. Craterhoof comes back, that's 5. making right now 11 plus 6 trampling is exactly 17, but he can't deal with the blocker there. And if he could deal with the Angel, it would be exactly lethal.
So here's a Grizzly Salvage. You see Lingering Souls, Avacyn's Pilgrim, and Burial Rites, Mulch, Cavern of Souls. None of those all that helpful, but he's going to get back an Avacyn's Pilgrim, which he can discard to the Lot Patrol to make that a little bit bigger. He could also play that if he has a land in his hand.
Right. So presumably, like he'd have to have 4 creatures in his hand to make this a lethal swing, which is a tall order.
So the big question here, does Craddock, does he have? He's at 2 life right now. So you're wondering, does he have maybe one of those Ravnica lands? But he's going to discard Avacyn's Pilgrim. He's going to get back Crater of Behemoth here with the Unbarrow Rights, trigger,
all right,
+3/+3 to all the guys. He's going to come across here for what I do not believe is a lethal attack. Behemoth is going to be an 8/8.
Yeah, it's 17 damage in all, which is Chase's life total. But there's that blocker there.
So we see 8 from the Behemoth, 6 from the Beast is 14, and then 14 plus 6 is 20.
Oh, it's 20. Apologies, I missed one in there. Yeah.
20 minus 4.
Yeah, 20 minus 4, so it's 16. So he does have, so the creature in hand would make this lethal then? So we have 5, yeah. Okay, so yeah, 12, and then, oh wait, they're all 3/3. I was counting them all as 2/2 because I wasn't counting the creator itself. Yeah, so with the creature he found off Grizzly Salvage, this should actually be 20, not...
So the attack total, because of trample damage and everything, we're seeing an attack here for 20, minus the 4 toughness on Restoration Angel, as long as our math is correct here, is 16 damage, which would actually leave Chase at 1.
But he has...
But the question here is, does Will have a creature in his hand?
Right, it's easy. Trample makes combat math here so easy because, which guy it blocks is pretty much irrelevant. Yep. All the damage is just going to get sucked up by the toughness. So, yeah, it looks like it's for 20, and... yeah, we'll see. It doesn't actually matter where Chase blocks.
Yep.
It's just whether or not Will has the creature.
So he's going to block here, shrugs his shoulders and says, "This is my block."
And looks like Will's last card is not a creature.
Now the interesting thing here is, are we seeing a concession here from Chase, him thinking he's dead, or? I want to get clarification on what happened.
What happened?
Because that attack there, it was so innocuous that Craddock attacks and everything, and Will Craddock. Okay, so Will Craddock does win.
Yeah, Will Craddock gets the win there.
Okay,
they say with exact damage. So just confirming, the Crater Hoof was for 8.
Correct.
The Lotless Troll was for 7. And the Beast Token was for 6. So that'd be 21.
Yes, 21.
Okay, 20. Okay, so actually,
we missed the point. We missed the point with the Lotless Troll. Okay,
right.
Got it.
Because he'd already discarded the Pilgrim.
Okay. So yeah, Lotless Troll was a 7 power creature. 2 counters, plus the 2 power from the Lotless Troll, plus the 3 from the Behemoth. So his action attack for 21 exactly, minus 4 is 17, which, as you can see, was Chase's life total. And that's Exactsies.
Excellent. Okay. We're gonna, while the players are sideboarding, we're gonna go ahead and bring you back into the booth.
It's because you guys want to see our faces.
Absolutely.
And his hat. His hat's awesome. We're gonna work out the technical difficulties about the blurry screen here. You guys can kind of see behind us. It's like dark.
Yeah, a little bit.
Little smidge
That's
dark.
the mood.
Yeah. I mean, normally we do kind of mood lighting later in the day. We like to bring our voices down. We let you guys get the candles out at home. But it's like the afternoon, pretty much everywhere in the world right now.
Right.
So this is a smidge awkward, but we're fixing everything for you guys so we can bring a better show to you. Again, Cedric Phillips and Matthias Hunt here in Star City Games at Dallas Fort Worth. First time in Dallas for one of these things?
For one of the opens, absolutely. I think the last time I was here, I was saying earlier, there was the Grand Prix it was here in Fort Worth. It was won by Dave Shields. As people remember, there were 32 Jaces in the top 8.
It's a good Magic card.
That was back when that card was doing okay.
Yeah, back when you played a Jace and they played a Jace, they both died, but that doesn't happen anymore.
Right. My joke was I didn't make the top 8 because I was playing 4 Vengevines and 0 Jaces, which was probably the wrong thing to be doing at the time.
Well, I mean, unless you're Brian Kibler. I think that's the only way that works, is if you're playing the green card instead of the blue card. But I think even then Brian was playing the blue card. So that's
really
how
hard
you know
not to
wrong.
play Jace when Jace is in the format.
Yeah, that's how you know you might be incorrect. But we'll take a look at the sideboards here, as Chase is going to be on the play for game number 2. We're taking a look at mostly what kind of junk Reanimator hate does he have outside of those ground seals in his main deck. And I see a Sever the Bloodline, Vraska the Unseen. He has a 3rd ground seal, and if he wants to go long, he has a Dead Bridge Chant. But the overall sideboard here: 3 Pillar of Flame, 2 Sire of Insanity, an Abrupt Decay, a Barter in Blood, a Blood Gift Demon, the Sever, a Rakdos Return, the Vraska, a Mizium Mortars, a Tragic Slip, the 3rd ground seal, and that Dead Bridge Chant. I mean, some of those cards point to wanting to help your Reanimator matchup a little bit more, but a lot of those cards do not. Are there anything here in particular that you think that you would bring in for this matchup outside of the obvious?
Yeah, I mean, there's the obvious things to be, the obvious graveyard hate. Outside of that, there aren't. I mean, I like Sever the Bloodline because it's actually a hard removal spell against a deck where its cards really don't like to stay dead.
Sure.
I don't think there's too many other things I really like in the matchup. Olivia Voldaren still seems like his key card, and those are already in the main deck.
Yeah. And I mean, other than that, I mean, this isn't a matchup where you really want Sire of Insanity. Sire, a card that we have seen in a lot of main decks recently. In Jund, again, the Owen Turtenwald Reduke School of Thought.
They play 2 in the main, too, is what we've been seeing.
They typically play 2 in the main and some number of Cavern Souls in their deck, but it looks like we see the swap here of Nighthawk in the main, Sire in the board, just trying to adjust for other matchups. And again, you know, this third ground seal is certainly going to be helpful. He's got some additional removal, some busty effects in Sever the Will and Vraska the Unseen. So we'll see if Chase can turn it around as we take a look at Will's sideboard here.
Well, I want to say, I think what Chase needs to do is he may want to adapt how he's playing the matchup.
Okay.
That last game, what we saw is Chase had an unanswered Olivia, which is exactly what his game plan's supposed to do. He ended up getting killed by Xaxes because or at least I believe he overswung the turn before.
Sure.
You know, because when you think about it, he had Will at 2, and he had him dead with so many overkill points. He has to just remember that Will's deck can actually deal 17 to 20 damage out of nowhere.
Yep.
So what he might want to do, say on that last turn, if instead of swinging everything in the air, he just swung the Olivia and the Nighthawk, and the next turn untapped, made Olivia even bigger, swung lethal, he would have had those extra blockers there to not get killed by the Craterhoof Behemoth. So, I mean, I think he'll probably learn that, because especially when you lose a game when you think you've won a game and then you lose it in that manner, you kind of have it in your back of he'll have it in the back of his head where he's thinking, okay, Will might be able to actually kill me here. I need to play a little safer than I did before.
And you see with the updates to the Junk Reanimator lists nowadays that we've seen over the past couple of weeks, Craterhoof Behemoth has been cut from most of those lists, so it's kind of easy to think, okay, like, where's the Fiend Hunter? Where is the Sin Collector? And then, you know, out of nowhere, you're getting Craterhoof Behemoth again, which hasn't happened in, I'd say, about a month or so.
Well, Will really got him on the surprise. You know, Chase was at 17, he swung, and there was all-in-one sequence. Will blocked, discarded a Craterhoof, that turn, untapped, unburial, righted it, and killed him. So, you know, Chase might not even think he has one, but by the time he saw it, it was too late.
Yep. Let's take a look at Will's sideboard. What do you got for you?
Well, he has the Acidic Slime package, 3 of them. He has 3 Abrupt Decays, 2 Ray of Revelation, 2 Tristanis, and then a fair number of 1-ofs. I'm not positive. I believe this is still a sliming matchup because Jund's not an aggro deck.
Yeah, I mean, what I have seen, and from what I've read, you know, this is still a matchup where you can slime people, because you can't just do it ahead of schedule because of Arbor Elf and Avacyn's Pilgrim. Again, Will's deck list doesn't have Arbor Elf. He does have 4 Pilgrims and 3 copies of Deathrite Shaman, so, you know, he's kind of hedging a little bit for the Junk Reanimator Mirror. Yeah. But, you know, he only has 4 mana accelerants instead of what typically we see 8.
Yeah, we normally see Arbor Elf, so he's not playing any of those. And unlike, you know, people say, oh, well, Deathrite Shaman's a mana creature, that's not really what Deathrite does in Standard. So it's going to be a little harder for him to slime people out. And I think we see that in his deck list. It's why it's not in the main. Yeah. He still has it because in matchups against, say, the Esper matchup, sliming is just so incredibly brutal that you want to have access to the plan. Other than that, I would say there aren't too many things which I like and which I would want to bring in his sideboard. I think he's going to expect more graveyard hate, but I think it's probably better for him just to try to play through it than to play around it. You know, he's not going to change his strategy.
And so now we see Will he's happy enough with 6 cards here. So he's going to play an Overgrown Tomb and pass the turn back. Chase has an Overgrown Tomb of his own. He's going to go down to 18 from the Stomping Ground. I think we're probably going to see a Farseek. We're going to see a Ground Seal, okay. So something that Chase did not have game 1, he does have game 2. And again, Chase does have 3 copies of Ground Seal after sideboard, so I think in these sideboarded games, assuming that we do move to a 3rd one, this is probably going to be the norm.
Yeah, and Will knows it. He's got to be happy that he avoided getting Ground Sealed game 1, but especially in post-board games with Reanimator, you can kind of assume that your Unburial Rights aren't working post-board.
Yeah. So we will cut back to the batch here in just a minute for you guys. There we are.
It looks like we're seeing a mulch from Will, and yeah.
Yeah, just some technical difficulties right now that we're working through, unfortunately.
Jonathan Hyatt, Josh Hurd, please come to the stage. Jonathan Hyatt and Josh Hurd, please come to the stage.
All right, and on turn 3, Will's going to make Lingering Souls. It looks like he mulched, hitting 2 lands on turn 2. We saw no turn 3 play from Jace, but Will now with 2 tokens in play.
Now, Lingering Souls is a card, as we're going to see Olivia Voldaren here yet again from Chase on turn 4. Lingering Souls is a card that we have not seen a lot of recently. Is that a switch that you think makes sense at this point in the format, where, less of this card? Again, Will's deck is more Crater of Behemoth based, but less of that card, more of your Fiend Hunter, Sin Collector type cards?
Well, if you're playing Craterhoof, it's obviously still a good card to play. The problem with Lingering Souls right now is that the 1/1s aren't particularly good against anything. If there were a lot of decks playing Planeswalkers, I think that Lingering Souls would still be a great card. Its effectiveness is how brutal it is against Planeswalkers. Obviously not against Jake's Architect of Thought, because he kind of has a built-in answer to Souls. But against everything else, it's still... Otherwise, there's very few things that it actually answers.
That's also an answer in Lingering Souls, which is becoming commonplace nowadays, as well as the Sever the Bloodline and Chase's sideboard does show up here. It's going to take care of all those Lingering Souls tokens, as Will's going to play a Woodland Cemetery, and he's going to follow up with a Thragtusk. So he does still have, a threat to follow up with, but the potential for some other things here in the following turns. But Unburial Rites is currently shut off because of that Ground Seal.
Right, so Chase can play a little more aggressively than he was allowed to in the last game. Last game, as we saw, Chase was able to get aggressive with the Olivia Voldaren, and he lost the game because Will just had this explosive Unburial Rites draw. Because of the Ground Seal in play, I don't think Chase really has to worry about that as much. So what we do see here, though, Chase makes the Thragtusk, moving back up 5 life, swings with Olivia, and really gains control of the board. You see that both Thragtusks hitting because there's no Unburial Rites working because of Ground Seal. Chase can afford to trade them, and when he tries to, though, Will has the Restoration Angel. So he's just trying to sneak in 5 free damage. Chase did not allow it to happen, and we're kind of digging in for a longer game here. And right on time, a Miracle Bonfire of the Damned for Chase.
That's a good Magic card. I don't know if you knew that.
No. It's especially good on turn 6 when you draw it off the top.
Yeah, it's not bad, as it's going to clear everything out of the way here. And now Olivia's going to come across. Thragtusk is looking to come across as well, basically saying, you can trade your Beast token. I'll take that Beast token and keep pushing through damage and just basically get that thing out of the way, which I think I like that trade right now.
I mean, Will's down to 1 card, so if you're Chase, you just have to think, trading when you're ahead is much better than trading when you're behind, and Chase is just, taking that to the bank right now.
Now, of course, I'm kind of with you, and I think that you should be sideboarding Acidic Slime in this matchup, not only just because you can just randomly destroy his lands, maybe mess with his colors, but I think at this point, the industry standard nowadays is that Ground Seal is in everyone's Jund deck, so you want to have an out to that so that Unburial Rites can be turned back on. I can't see Will's hand right now, can't really make it out, as Chase is going to play an Overgrown Tomb untapped right now, but I have a kind of a belief that there's probably an Unburial Rites hiding over there that he cannot cast right now.
Right, and that could certainly be the case. I mean, Acidic Slime, also because, it's just pretty decent in the matchup that I don't think he'd struggle to get value off it. It can trade with a Thragtusk, even, if it hits a land on the front half of a Thragtusk, that's not even the worst trade for it.
Yeah. It's certainly not ideal, but when
times
are
that's the worst case scenario for it, right?
Yeah, when times are tough, as we're going to see a Grizzly Salvage here. It's going to show over an Overgrown Tomb, an Avacyn's Pilgrim, an Unburial Rites, a bunch of cards that look like they do not matter.
Pilgrim land, Unburial Rites.
Yeah, and I think Will's going to show him those and then probably concede the game, and that's exactly what he's going to do. So Chase is going to tie this one up here as we're going to move on to a third and final game.
Interesting note, what I do like is that Will, when he casts on Grizzly Salvage there, I've sometimes seen people ask, do I have to show my opponent these 5 cards? If I brick and want to concede, do I have to show them the 5 cards?
Yeah.
And the answer is yes. Which is kind of strange because sometimes you think, oh, I can concede whenever I want, but because the card says reveal, he knows it goes through he goes through the motion of showing his opponent the 5, then conceding.
Yeah. It's like, do I have to give away this information? And
right.
I think Chase is probably like, whoa. Well, let me see those really quick, my friend.
Right, it's because technically Will's not allowed to look at them without Chase seeing them. So if he's looking at them just by himself, that's something he can't do.
Public information is public information.
Right.
As we'll take a look again at the sideboards here just really quickly. We saw the Seven of Bloodline. That was certainly in here. I think the kind of interesting thing on Chase's side is what does he want to sideboard out? Because we still saw the Vampire Nighthawks in. He actually drew both that game. I think Liliana the Veil probably comes out, but what removal spells does he want to move in and out? His removal spells are Abrupt Decay, Dreadbore, Mizziant Mortars, 2 copies of Putrefy. Does he want to move some of those in, move some of them out? He also has 2 Tragic Slips.
That seems particularly weak to me in the match.
Okay. And then, Tragic Slip's kind of interesting, right? Where, it's, I think, overall kind of poor, But again, being able to snag like a turn 1 Absence Pilgrim and really stunt Will's development.
Yeah, that's great to hit the turn one Pilgrim. I think the difference is there's a fair number of cards that can still do that.
Okay.
You know, if you really want to kill a turn 1 mana creature, I'm okay, for example, Dreadboring a turn 1 mana creature.
Okay.
You know, so because of that, I don't feel like I need, you know, tailor-made answers for 1-drops. The reason you play Tragic Slip is because in the aggro matchups, that 1 mana, the fact that it costs 1 instead of 2 or 3 for your Putrefies and Dreadbores, is just so important. You know, like on turn 3 you can do a 1 and a 2 removal spell. You could, you know, you can Farseek and Tragic Slip. There's so many. That's why it's strong. I don't think this matchup is so mana tight that you need to play inferior spells just to be able to cast them quicker.
Okay, that definitely makes sense. So I mean, we'll probably see those Tragic Slips, at least our assessment is that we'll probably see the Tragic Slips in the sideboard and not be played this game. But
I would think so.
You never know. But outside of that, I mean, again, he does have that Sever the Bloodline that he did bring in. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Vraska maybe this game show up. I don't know how long the matchup is going to go because, like, in this matchup, I feel that Jund is the aggressor, not the Reanimator deck. I feel the Reanimator deck is more of the control deck, so I don't think that this is a great place for Deadbridge Chant. I'm not entirely sure that the game's going long enough. Also, the fear of acidic slime. You know, you play Deadbridge Chant, you get it slimed. It's like, okay, what have I really done?
Deadbridge Chant is really a slow card advantage engine. You know, it's basically it's a Phyrexian Arena, you know, which is a draw an extra card or turn effect that sometimes casts a creature for you. So like, I kind of think of it as a Phyrexian Arena that sometimes makes a lot of mana.
Sure.
Which is, you know, obviously a pretty good card, and in a grindy matchup is great. You know, a Jund Mirror. Like, Jund Mirrors are decided by things like Grook Primal Hunter, and I would think to a certain level, Deadbridge Chant's excellent in those matchups. Here, even if Chase is drawing 2 cards per turn, he can't compete with the power level of what the Reanimator deck's doing. As we saw before, each game, Chase has ended the game with a lot of extra cards in his hand. You know, we saw there he had Olivia and Thragtusk in play, and I think his hand had, you know, 2 Hunt Masters, another Bonfire, just like all this stuff that he never had time to cast.
Yep.
And because of that, I think, you know, Deadbridge Chant will just like draw him more 4-drops, and that really just doesn't seem like what he wants to be doing.
Okay. It does make sense, as Chase is going to take at least 1 mulligan here. We'll see him lay out at 6 and see if he's happy or not.
Yeah. The question for Chase is, how do you win the non-Olivia hands? You know,
that's the big question, right? Because Olivia is like the hallmark card in this matchup for the Jund side. It provides a fast clock. It's an answer to like everything Will's doing, as Will's going to start off with a Woodland Cemetery and pass the turn back. And Olivia
we'll never find out how you win the other ones.
As Olivia is Chase's draw step for the turn. So we're going to see another Olivia game here. The question is it going to be on turn 3 or turn 4, as Craddock is going to play a Temple Garden untapped, push himself down to 18, and we'll see if it's time for a mulch or a Grizzly Salvage.
I love the play of second land untapped ship turn.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be like, okay,
it's going to be a mulch. So the 4 cards coming are a Godless Shrine, a Cavern of Souls, a Godless Shrine, and an Imperial Rites.
That's draw 3 and put a Rites in the yard. That's not shabby.
Not so bad at all. And I think Will's going to have to discard here, so we'll see what card he's going to discard.
The Crater Hoof.
Yeah.
Or something equally silly. Yeah, he has 1 card too many, so he has to discard 1. Yeah, the interesting thing is that when Chase has non-Olivia hands, granted we're not going to really explore this line too much because it's not going to happen, Thragtusk really can shut down his deck's main strategy. And okay, he did choose to discard the Crater.
So are you from the future?
So.
Or because I know this is my first show working with you, and you seem to be pretty on so far.
Well, I like to play hope magic, where I just kind of think of what I'd really like to have happen, and then just, you know, it just happens.
Okay. So Grizzly Salvage is going to show an Obzad, a Mulch, a Temple Garden, a Forest, and a Godless Shrine.
So more lands. I doubt Will needs more lands at this point.
Yeah.
And yeah, he doesn't. So he's going to go with the Ghost Council.
I think, you know, maybe his line of thought that turn is, I want a Grizzly Salvage into one of my one drop mana accelerants, Absence Pilgrim or Deathrite Shaman, and get one of those into play because my graveyard is already pretty happy. But at the same time, I'm not going to be reliant on my graveyard because I know that ground seals are looming. Chase just doesn't have one yet.
Well, that information ahead of time lets him decide whether or not to shock for his land for turn, which is why you do it main phase.
Sure.
And, you know, so right now he got to play the Godless Shrine tapped. He saved himself 2 life.
And so now you see Chase just with another land and says go. I mean, yes, his mana and all his colors are online, and we do know that he has that 4th land for Olivia, but we also know, like, in his hand he has Huntmaster, 2 copies of Huntmaster, an Olivia and a Dreadbore, and he's not really building like any velocity or accelerating at all. You don't see a Farseek this game or a Ground Seal, so he's just playing a normal game of Magic. And one thing you don't want to do against
land spell.
one thing you don't want to do against Junk Reanimator, Matthias, is play a normal game of Magic.
No, they're not playing fair. So if you're at a big disadvantage. I mean, just of note, we're seeing his graveyard stacked there. Recall though, Will Craddock has a Unburial Rites and a Craterhoof Behemoth in his graveyard right now. So really, he just has to put things into play, and if he does that, he's looking pretty good.
And Cavern of Souls is going to name Vampire for Olivia, but we're going to see a Restoration Angel here on the end step from Will. And we do know he has plenty of lands in his hand, so I feel like we're probably going to see 5th land Obsidian coming this turn. And I guess the question I would ask you, Matthias, is, you know, he could have let the Obsidian go to his graveyard and then reanimated it last turn, and Ghost Council could have been in play this turn and probably attacking. He blinks it out, and he's slashing in this turn. Do you like the play of, I mean, he's basically playing around Ground Seal by taking the Obsidian to his hand.
Yeah, well, what I really like what he's done here is he's increased his clock by leaving that Craterhoof Unburial Rites interaction, which that's so much more powerful. It's, you know, you're cheating, what, 4 mana on Craterhoof? I think that because he had a relevant turn 4 play, obviously the Resto Angel's not as good as Obsidian, but he's able to do something productive on turn 4. Obsidian can wait till turn 5, and now he still has this other weapon in his arsenal.
Okay. So Obsidian's going to come in. He's going to, as Brian Brondon likes to say, drain him and brain him for 2. And now Restoration's going to come across, and Obsidian's going to go into hiding.
I would say we probably would have seen your turn 4 play of Unburial Rites. If Will had no turn 4 play, we probably would have seen that happen.
Okay. And Chase does draw a Tragic Slip for the turn, and this
I stand corrected.
This kind of highlights your point, however, where, you know, it's not really at its best right now.
Right. He has so much. I mean, Jund. I like to pick on Jund sometimes because I think its mana base can be really rough. I think we're kind of seeing that right now. You know, it's like you kind of have this point where there's you can either have 2 lands in play, or you can have 5 lands in play, or you can have 8. And like there's different, like 5, 4, and 6 lands all kind of feel the same in Jund because they don't do anything different. You know, he's essentially he has 1 spell per turn that he can play right now, and he keeps drawing more things, but the cards don't really matter because he can't play 2 of them at a time.
Sure.
So I guess maybe he still likes Tragic Slip because at least with Tragic Slip, there's a chance that you can cast 2 things.
Yeah, I mean, 2 spells in 1 turn is once we've seen in the past. Once Jund is able to actually start casting 2 spells in 1 turn,
it's dangerous.
That's when its deck goes into overdrive. As we're going to see an Avacyn's Pilgrim here, you're going to see a flashback on Burial Rites. Pilgrim, of course, going to make the Behemoth trigger 1 more across, and so now here come all the idiots. This is a boatload of damage.
3, 5, 5, 13, and then plus 12. We have 25 trampling.
That's it.
That should be good, right?
What's 25 minus 8?
That looks like his life total.
You're a math teacher.
I would say that there are not many blocks that Chase can make here to keep himself above 0. He's counting it up. Yeah, it's exactly 25 trampling. I don't. Slowly coming to it.
Somewhere, I know Brad Nelson right now is playing an APTQ in Roanoke, Virginia, but I think like his spider senses are tingling at what's happening. He's probably got an idea. He knows when
Craterhoof Behemoth.
Yeah, he knows when Craterhoof Behemoths are attacking for a whole lot of damage, so he's probably pretty stoked right now. As Chase is going to extend the hand, Will Craddock is going to win this game and get his tournament off to a very nice start. 2-1, Junk Reanimator over Jund. Something I have a feeling we're going to see quite a few times today.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you said before, Will Craddock, last time making the finals of the Standard Open here in Dallas-Fort Worth with Reanimator, on his path once again to doing so.
Yeah. I mean, he won the Legacy Tournament with Sneak and Show last time we were in this very room. Also, when we were in Kansas City, he did win with Junk Reanimator there. So this is the guy who knows how to play this version of this deck. Again, it's kind of like the old school version, for lack of a better term, because we've seen updates to the deck with main deck Acidic Slimes, with Fiend Hunters, with Sin Collectors, all these different changes, and Will is just going with a very kind of old version of the deck, and I mean, Craterhoof Behemoth looked pretty good there.
Yeah, and I think one of the interesting things is when you see decks, you know, next level and previous level versions of a deck, you kind of have to remind yourself, you know,